I know I can't be the only one that feels this way after reading the latest My Hero Academia chapter, but there is no way in hell Izuku is going to be able to bring down Shigaraki without some form of extreme power-up to One For All, or using an airy backpack, or Shigaraki deciding himself he wants to be defeated. Now, I know the cruise missiles that didn't fully hit Shigaraki weren't nuke-level strength, but it doesn't change the fact he did get hit by at least one of the strongest things you could get hit by in the My Hero Academia universe that isn't quirk-related. So this puts a few things into perspective after what we got to witness ourselves. Shigaraki is unbelievably broken, and I definitely don't think he'll get New Order at all at this point. Secondly, this lets us know quirks are starting to surpass military technology in the My Hero Academia universe, which means governments around the world won't be able to keep people in check anymore with rules and regulations to quirks. This means the greater the quirk, the more power you wield in this world. Now that's a scary thought that Horikoshi-sensei has added to this chapter of My Hero Academia. So let's actually dive into what we all read and how Shigaraki actually survived the explosion. With the lasers stun-locking Shigaraki into place, it became very obvious quickly that it wasn't enough to kill him, but it left Shigaraki in a state of regenerating himself over and over again. He knew that because they couldn't kill him, they must have had a bigger plan up their sleeve, so he took the biggest gamble he possibly could. He used the Nomu to direct the attention of the pilots at the last second and decayed himself a small hole in the ocean floor. The reason the Nomu was able to move there was because you could see the Nomu getting stun-locked right beside Shigaraki. We also know Nomus can regenerate. It's not to the same level as current Shigaraki, but it is definitely enough to at least have a cannon fodder to block someone's sight. With the impact of the explosion coming in, the Nomu with its regeneration was able to use its body to block the hole Shigaraki created in the ground. Now, it's clear that the explosion wasn't, fully blocked because of the damage Shigaraki took, but it wasn't 100% of the damage. So, theoretically, the missiles might have killed Shigaraki if he was directly hit by all of them. Also, being in a small hole dug down at the blast epicenter definitely probably helped him out a lot. I feel like many will quickly glance over this and think it's plot armor for the reason why Shigaraki was able to even survive in the first place. However, if you do some research to explosions in real life, bunkering down even in an impact zone increases your chances of survival greatly. Even if the chances are, let's say, increased by 5% or 1% for the common person, it's much better odds for someone that's filled with hundreds of quirks inside of them that have so many different possibilities to survive impacts, to regenerate constantly, to negate certain amount of damage, etc. This type of stuff can really help your survival chances when you're getting hit by a giant explosion. So now that we understand how he survived, let's talk about how this really is one of the scariest panels of the entire My Hero Academia manga at this point. Seeing Shigaraki smile while his body is in this state is unnerving and ridiculous. I couldn't imagine my personal thoughts if I saw someone flying towards me looking like this. It's like those stories you read in a zombie movie or film or whatever, or, anything. If a zombie had half its body missing and it still walked towards you with half that body missing and it's dragging itself and it's not stopping, that would be a 100% morale killer. This entire panel does make me wonder, though, what is truly the limit of Shigaraki's regenerative capabilities? Because when you really look at the image, you see bone, you see his teeth barely in, you see his skull, and it's just like, when you look at that, could he theoretically just regenerate from like a single particle that is left behind of him? Like, does he have the same level of regeneration of Cell from Dragon Ball Z? It's so many questions, but it makes me wonder what really is Shigaraki's regenerative capability limit. But now let's fast forward a bit and talk about the final pages of the chapter. Shigaraki manages to get his hand on Star. So this means one of four things are potentially going to happen. One, Shigaraki steals the quirk and he gets New Order, which, as I said, he does definitely not need at this point. The second, he doesn't get the quirk, but decays her instead. Since there has been an ongoing dispute inside of Shigaraki's body, this could definitely lead to him decaying, Star, instead of stealing the quirk. Third, he potentially tries to steal the quirk and doesn't get it thanks to how New Order works, so instead he decides to kidnap or continue the fight with Star until he has a better odds or chances of being able to actually get the quirk for himself. Fourth, Star, knowing he wants her quirk, retaliates and attacks Shigaraki right then and there and smashes herself with him with the air version of herself. Now, the final one is obviously pretty grim to think about, but you gotta realize what Horikoshi Sensei himself was setting up at the end. Star could have potentially finished Shigaraki right then and there if she crushed the pilot with his, stealth bomber. However, she didn't because she respected and loved her crew members, which is why Shigaraki was able to get so close to begin with. Now that I've talked about that, I want to shift over to Star and, her backstory. From this chapter, we get some panels that show Star's mental state and how she truly feels inferior to All Might, and she feels like her crew knows this, but doesn't say anything to, discourage her. Which might go with my ongoing theory of the New Order quirk. If you truly feel like you can't do something, the New Order will not work. She set her own limitations subconsciously. And speaking of limitations and her quirk New Order, we now see how she took damage in the last chapter when she grabbed and formed the lasers into a lightsaber. Her giant air version of herself indeed does have some form of damage feedback. When she grabbed the missiles within the air, you see her physical body launch as well. She even states her arm might be ripped off if she just doesn't navigate the missiles to Shigaraki soon. That means if Shigaraki was to hit that area, he potentially could harm Star, or he might even be able to steal her quirk or something through touching that section of the air or decay her or whatever. The point is that we now know that her giant air version of herself does actually give damage back to her physical body. Anyways, the chapter is absolutely ridiculous, and I'm hyped to see what's going to happen next. I'm excited to see what Horikoshi Sensei does next for this fight, or if it's actually over with this chapter. Now, I do personally hope that he isn't making Shigaraki too powerful, and he doesn't give Shigaraki New Order, because if he does do that, it could potentially lead into a Madara situation where he's too powerful to be dealt with without some form of contrived, plot device. Because if you think about Madara in Naruto, he was an overpowered individual for good reason. He was overpowered for a really good reason, but he got taken down from just a very contrived plot device and plot point that just, it didn't sit well with me, and I feel like many that read that arc of Naruto. And so when you actually think about it, I hope that Horikoshi Sensei isn't doing the exact same thing with Shigaraki and building him up to, be way too powerful. Also, I really hope Star does not die. Even if her quirk is somehow stolen, I would just hate to lose such an interesting character and just the #1 American hero as well that got introduced. I would hate to lose a character after their first fight introduction. Hopefully we get to see more of her, and this isn't like the last time we actually get to see of her. But anyways, I guess I'll leave it at that. If you, enjoyed the video at all, and I gave you any form of entertainment, or a smile, or whatever, you learned something, please leave a like, and subscribe if you want more of my content in your YouTube feed. It would also help me out a lot. But I love you all, and be safe, stay healthy, Chibi out.